It's been a while since I've done a video on this. I've been a bit busy. Anyway, we moved on the little mini bike project. Might not look like much, but it has. So, first things first is when I was running it down the road, the chain line here was pretty bad that way, so it was catching on the sprocket, which would have the chain off, and I don't fancy the chain off at whatever speed. So we've sorted that out and put a tensioner in as well. So that'll just take up whatever bit of slack, and I'll tighten that up if need be. I've decided, I did have different sprockets, I've decided to keep the 68 that was on there. I did buy a 60-ish and a 55. And I did try the 55, and it was quite pleasant in terms of acceleration. But if you consider that this did 22 or something on 12S, it's going to run 16S, and I don't really want to go above 30 on this, really. I'd rather have the acceleration, at least at the moment. Anyway, this was a better fit. Some of the sprockets I brought, they had a bigger bore here. I mean, slightly, but it wasn't sitting on the machine circle, so only on the bolts, so it's a little bit dodgy. Anyway, I'm sure they'd be fine, but there you go. Right, I will make a guard for this and just bolt it up to this, because that's still dodgy. I've just knocked a piece of square on that. That will cut you to ribbons, so that's just temporary, just to have something to sit on. Controller, I've actually mounted it now. They're just screwed through plastic block because the threading on this is very little to it, so that just holds the thread, and then the screw interfere fits against some of the fitting on this. I'm sure it will bounce off now and again, but there we go, it'll be fine. The front end, I've made a piece of very odd shaped wood deck for this, which is that shape. I'm not going to cut things twice, so cardboard and trim, and then cut one final. So you've essentially got the mounting points here and on the other side, same thing, and a board then that I can lay the battery on, which will be here, and I've used this also to mount. Now I've gone away from my PWM, and I've got a 12 volt DC to DC regulator, step down, whatever it's called. This is technically a 5 amp, but there was a glass fuse in that blew, and I thought this was goosed, but it's not. It was just a glass fuse, so it's got a slightly bigger fuse in it. I think it was a 7.5, maybe a 10. I can't remember. If it goes pop, it goes pop. Such is. So that's mounted on the board, and then on the back of the board is also mounted the 3-phase bridge rectifier, which is just coming off, and I need to mount this because that's the controller wires, and that's going to the motor, and then these, which are unfortunately under quite a lot of tension just at the minute. I've only just mounted this up really, so that just needs screwing somewhere, but that's picking up whatever voltage. And now, because this, unlike the bike, isn't running the pedals, it is running the wheel, it'll keep generating on overrun, so that should keep the coil alive to give it some engine braking, and then as the speed drops you should lose that, and you lose the 12 volts, and then it'll coast. We'll still see, I haven't tried it yet. Up front, this was the plug that was always inside the bike, and then that was the extra for putting a supplementary battery on, but that will just get insulated out and taken out of the way. Batteries, we've got 4S 400 milliamp times 4, and they will go together, and somewhere I've got a little wiring harness, but I don't remember where I put it. So I've got 2 of those, and I'm going to wire those up so that you get 4 in series, 2 of these in parallel, so it'll be 8 amp hours, and then that will go on to the XT60. And at the other end of the wiring harness, wherever it's disappeared to, it's fused at the other end. So I'm not going to run a BMS for discharge, because getting over 40 amps is a bit of a pain. You have to start buying expensive BMSs. I think I did the shunt on the controller, which is just in here somewhere. That's got a load of solder on it, so it might do 50 amps, 60. I don't really know because I never really measured it. So that's about it really. So these batteries, they'll mount on that bit of board, and so I'll strap those down, and then I've got this other bodywork that I've had on something else, and that sits all nicely under the tank. So apart from actually just connecting that up and mounting that battery down, it's pretty close. I've taken the twist throttle off. My daughter, who may or may not ride this, it's a bit lethal. She doesn't like the twist throttle. She tends to grab it and give it too much. So we've gone for the thumb throttle with a voltage meter on it. That needs wiring in, and I don't really want to run this without brake switches, so I'll make some contacts with the brake switches before I run this with any vigour, and hopefully won't come a cropper. So next video it should all be together and ready for a test ride.